Welcome back to the Rule of Law, the Academy Speaks. I'm Joe Tucker, President of the International Academy of Trial Lawyers. When we recorded our last episode, one of the most powerful conversations we've had, Mike Haggard and I talked about what it means to be a lawyer in a country plagued by gun violence, what it means to bury a client's child, to carry the grief into the courtroom and demand justice. Literally 2 hours after we wrapped up that conversation, there was another mass shooting, another community shattered, another set of families forever changed. So today we return to this urgent topic with two of the most fearless advocates in America. Mike Haggard, who has spent decades fighting for victims of gun violence. And I want to welcome Josh Koskoff. He's not only a fellow of the Academy, he has won a landmark litigation in Sandy Hook versus Remington. We're going to talk about that. It forever, I hope, has changed the landscape. So significant was Josh's litigation that Time has named him one of the 100 most influential people. Together, we're asking the hard questions. What can trial lawyers do when lawmakers fail? How do we confront corporate responsibility in an era of mass shooting? First, Mike, I want to go back to you. The day we recorded the last episode, another mass shooting happened just hours later. The reality has become a routine in America. How do you stay motivated when it feels like nothing's changed?
Yeah, no, that was unbelievable, Joe. And it was at my alma mater, Florida State University. 2.5 hours after I get off that emotional podcast with you, I hear, a place that I have some of the greatest memories of my life, and kids are running from gunshots. It's just unbelievable. And the only way I can draw any motivation and hope is from our clients. I mean, just the courage that they have to go on, and the power that we can then have to try to not only help them, but to try to prevent the next one. And it's not easy. And I think that we've got to keep charging forward with new theories like Josh has done to try to curb this problem.
Josh, it's interesting. When Mike and I were doing our post-production, I complained to him that we just didn't have enough time to talk about all the issues. The very first name he raised was yours. And I said, of course, Josh.
What was the question? No.
Well, the question was who.
I'm not sure I want to know why he raised. No, go ahead, Joe.
He raised it because he and I both, we know you, we know what you're doing. And you handled the groundbreaking Sandy Hook versus Remington, the gun case. But it was deeply personal. And I have two questions for you. First, how did you balance your role as an advocate with the emotional weight of that case?
I tried to be methodical and be human about it. I tried to grieve along with my clients. I understood that as sad as I was being around them and experiencing the atmosphere of their grief, that they were overcoming so much, or trying to overcome so much. So like Mike said, you draw a lot of motivation from that, and you think, I mean, if they can get out of bed in the morning and put their shoes on, I can look into this case. I can file this motion. I can, look for this. I can get through it too. I mean, I didn't lose a child. So, it should be said that, like, as trial lawyers, we deal with terrible losses all the time. And so nothing compares you to the collective loss and sort of the confusion in the aftermath of a mass shooting. Nothing compares you for that. But Mike's handled wrongful death cases. I have as well. And, it's hard to be, I think, a really effective trial lawyer without being able to have a relationship with your clients that's really human. So that's what I would say.
Well, let me talk about the uniqueness of your case against Remington. And I saw your presentation that you gave to the Academy about the way you were able to literally pierce Remington's corporate veil through their marketing program. Tell the listeners a little bit about this. I think this is one of the many reasons why Time magazine puts you on its list of the 100 most influential people, because of this innovative theory you did.
When you're involved in something and things start to add up, I started to see a pattern and a sea change in the way that this industry did business from the old days. And what really, there was a couple of linchpin things that did it that made me realize that the focus 100% on the guns, well, I would have been the first to say that it's all about the guns. And it is true that you can't have a mass shooting without a gun, but we do live in a world with guns. There's more guns in this country than there are people. So we have to deal with it. And that means corporations have to act in the world that they live in, not the world that they wish they lived in, right? That's a world with guns. So what I noticed is that when I learned that AR-15s were readily available since 1978 in this country, and yet I went to school, I didn't know what a school shooting was. We didn't do school shooting drills. We did fire drills in which the objective was to get out of the building as quickly as possible, not to hunker down like a canned fish. But in any event, we didn't have to worry about it. So if it were really just about AR-15s, then where were these mass shootings when I was growing up? Now, you have to be flexible as a lawyer looking into a case. If you're a hammer, all you're going to see is nails. You need to open up the entire toolkit. So I started looking into what really is happening under the hood, and I noticed this confluence of events in the between 2005 and 2010. That is the reason I can pinpoint to the origin of the mass shooting epidemic in America today. And it had to do with the way that private equity in particular had invested in this unsophisticated gun industry. And they had turned it around on the backs of the AR-15, which was a weapon that nobody really wanted because it's a military weapon and people don't naturally want one.
Well, let me stop you for a second before you go to how you got it. What is an AR-15 used for? Why do 18-year-olds have AR-15s?
Well, that's a great question. When I was growing up, I could have acquired one as an 18-year-old or 21-year-old. I just had no interest in it. So it begs the question is, how do they even know about them, let alone want them? But they didn't want them. For decades, this product was on the market and no 18-year-old really wanted one. Now they are pushed through the gun industry has basically harnessed and leveraged the online marketplace and modern technologies to promote and educate and reach children, adolescents, and teens prior to turning 18 to habituate them and get them interested in this weapon. It's a ingenious marketing scheme to reach adolescents at a time when they're in personal turmoil, as all adolescents are to some degree, and feeling aggrieved, feelings of aggrievement, and promoting a solution to their problems. But how do you reach them? When I was growing up, when the three of us, we're wise old men, or wise middle-aged men, let's say. When we were growing up, the gun industry would have loved to have promoted weapons to us directly. But there were a few things standing in our way, right? In their way. We had parents, right? There was no way to promote a weapon to us other than through maybe a magazine, but we had to have money to get a magazine. We had to have a ride to the bookstore, right? And or if no gun store was going to let us look at their products. We couldn't waltz into a gun store. So the online marketplace obliterates all those things. So the real reason we have mass shootings is the way in which the gun industry has used the online marketplace and the ability to reach directly into a future consumer, beginning at an early age.
Tell me about how are they catching these potential consumers at an early age?
Well, it's like a lot of commercial predators. If they know where the kids are going, they know where the young people are going. They're going on Instagram. They're playing first-person shooter games, right? And so you have like fish in a pond for the gun industry. They can just throw their reel in and reel in fish from this pond of players or this pond of Instagram users and other social media outlets. The parents could be as good as well-meaning and good and mentoring parents as possible, but they can't protect their children from these commercial predators. And as an example, in Uvalde, the kid who did the shooting bought a $2,500 Daniel Defense AR-15 when he was 18 years and 23 minutes old. So what that tells you is that he was being marketed to long before turning 18. And we know he was marketed to by this company, this small company from Georgia, who had placed their weapon in Call of Duty and who had had an aggressive marketing through Instagram. You know, Joe, I have come really full circle here. The gun industry is a major, in my mind, unethical, immoral, basically industry that sells products that are killing us. And there's no excuse for the industry, in my view, in the way they practice, in their business practices. But they don't act alone. They are enabled by Meta, is one company that enables them. They're enabled by Activision. They're enabled by so-called, clean companies that walk away from this mess. Those companies live in the same world that we live in. It's a world with AR-15s. I don't like it. You don't like it. Mike doesn't like it. But they're here. They're legal. And so their conduct needs to be measured appropriately. And they are like matchmakers, making matches between children, adolescents when they're struggling, and gun companies trying to sell them AR-15s to kill.
And is that what you were able to do? You were able to look at the marketing that the gun manufacturers, specifically Remington, did to the shooter in Sandy Hook, and
yes,
direct line from the marketing to him to his purchase of an AR-15 and the killing at Sandy Hook?
Yeah, it's slightly different. His mom purchased the weapon, but for him, and his more about his use of the weapon at Sandy Hook. And he wanted the weapon that was featured in the way he learned about it, which was through Call of Duty. And I know, having played Call of Duty, exactly where he got some of the techniques. So it was very evidence-based, Joe. One of the problems with some gun cases that are brought in general is that they point to a lot, cases point to a lot of things that the gun company might do wrong, but are unrelated to the outcome. Mm-hmm. Here we know that here we had a kid who was a shut-in. He had no friends. He had no exposure to the outside world other than through his virtual world, which was online and in these games, where he could be everything he felt he wasn't, powerful, feared, violent, and he could live out that and escape the issues that he was having as an adolescent. And it's not a secret that you have on the other side. What we found, Joe, was a company that was directly promoting solutions to adolescent problems in an effort to expand the marketplace for AR-15s. At this time period, the AR-15 market had been on fire for a while. It was like people discovering something new when it'd be out forever, because the marketing had worked, especially by pushing guns on the idea that Obama was going to take people's weapons. But when Obama didn't do anything on new gun laws, now all these companies had made all the same thing. AR-15s are all the same. And the only way to beat out the competition was to get into new markets and reach them before your competitors. That's exactly what Remington did. That's why they went to an extreme and beyond the pale, effectively, to reach younger and younger demographics.
Josh, is boiling my blood as you talk about how they are targeting young kids with the weapons before they even become adults to purchase these weapons of, I'll say, mass destruction. Let me turn to Mike for a second, but I'm going to come back to you, Josh. Mike, what role do you see the NRA having with this cancer, as you said, which is upon America? What's the role that the NRA is playing in this?
Well, I think, and Josh and I have talked about this a lot, they've set up the culture, they've set up the culture, the political backdrop. The NRA has lost a lot of power politically, but the problem is they established such a culture for so long that people feel, even though polling to get rid of AR-15s and other assault weapons is at 75, 80%, the gun culture believes that if you move 1 inch, you are going to move a mile. And they have set that up through all their years and others. And another thing, everybody talks about all the time that the gun manufacturers are a small industry. they're nothing like tobacco. They're nothing like big pharma or anybody like that, but they've established this culture through the NRA and through other affiliates that nobody wants to move on it. And so that's been a huge, huge problem, obviously, on the political front. One thing that I try to do in negligent security cases, and when I speak to security conferences, is I tell them, look, your government's not going to protect you. It is what it is. These are legal. So you need to join the fight, because if you are Walmart, who's a pretty good seller of firearms, they don't sell AR-15s, they don't sell certain type of weapons, but they're the number one site of mass shootings in America by far. And they're not a terrible corporate citizen on this. And my point to them and others is you better get on our team on this, because our clients are victims, but these businesses are victims too. Because like Josh said, we all live in the same world with the same weapon and other weapons, obviously.
Josh, where do you continue this fight with the gun manufacturers? And is this a blueprint for other lawyers to take on the gun industry?
Well, that's a great question. I mean, first of all, I'm happy to report that we just won about 10 days ago, maybe a couple of weeks ago. We beat back a motion to dismiss in our Highland Park case, which was involving the July 4th shooting. So in that case, we used a very similar approach to what we did in the Sandy Hook case here in Connecticut. And so I guess it's what I would say is, you can't. No, these cases are so unique, involving unique factual situations. So I would never say, reel off the same case each time. But I think if it's a blueprint for anything, Joe, I would say it's a blueprint for lawyers like Mike, like the IATL, to take a hard look at these cases, not dismiss a really hard case out of hand because it's too hard or it hasn't been done before. If you've got a worthy client, a worthy case like these, to give it that if you believe in it, it can happen. And so it's a blueprint to use all the tools at your disposal as a lawyer to try to make it work. And down in Texas, I'm dealing with different state laws, but there we have a straight up violation of a Texas statute.
Are you talking about the Uvalde shooting there?
Yeah. It's not surprising given the facts and the kid actually purchasing or putting his credit card down at 18 years and 23 minutes of life, that they had been engaging with him before. So he has emails from Daniel Defense saying, hey, do you still want that AR-15 when he's 17 years old? In Texas, it's against the law. It's a violation of the law to offer to sell any firearm to a minor. So, you go again. I mean, it's a little surf and turf. Like you have your ideas, you try to see if they work. Then you find, oh, hey, I got this piece of evidence, and then you may have to shift. You have to be flexible in these cases, and you have to tell a story. I think the other blueprint is tell a story that makes sense, and that where you can point to a causal relationship between the wrongdoing and the outcome. I didn't know that this was a verboten area of the law until I took the case, and everybody said I was crazy, and I was thinking about it, and I thought, well, I think they're right. I just didn't know.
Well,
but now
I'm glad you're crazy, and there are lots of people who are listening to this who are glad that people like you and Mike are crazy enough to take on the gun manufacturers and the gun lobby. I want to shift because you said something, and this is a question I have to both you and Mike. You talked about the advertisements happening on Meta. Is there a pathway to stop these social media giants from marketing these weapons of mass destruction that are killing our kids and tearing apart communities?
I mean, I think I'd like to think that the Sandy Hook case was a wake-up call for all players in the online marketplace to think twice about helping to promote AR-15s to kids. Instagram, we're suing them in Uvalde. Especially for that very reason, Joe. Instagram needs to understand that being the number one means of social media by kids in this country, and by its own admission, Instagram is an advertising business. It's not even a social media company. That's what they have said it in those words. That with that comes responsibility. And there's no reason that they should allow, they say they don't allow firearms companies to advertise, but I could show you 50, 100. I just got one the other day. Daniel Defense AR-15 ads that promote basically irresponsible use of the weapon on Instagram. So the hope is that we get them engaged and hold them liable in our case. Beyond that, they can pretty quickly just shut that down. They don't have to have and help gun companies promote AR-15s. You know, and for a separate topic, you have the whole problem that we're facing with the Section 230 immunity that is enjoyed by social media companies. And in our lawsuit that we're bringing on behalf of 18, and now I guess 19 of the 21 deaths in Uvalde against Instagram, they are raising the immunity as a defense and as a reason to dismiss our case. That argument is coming up next month.
Mike, what's your front that you want to see further pushed by lawyers to hold the gun industry responsible for these mass shootings?
Well, you know, and I think Josh just kind of hit on, you think about the two biggest immunities that manufacturers have in the United States: firearm manufacturers with PLACA and social media companies with 230. I mean, it makes pharmaceutical
For us people who are non-lawyers listening, can you peel back that onion just a little bit with what you mean by those two statutes? I know what you mean.
Yeah, PLACA gives almost absolute immunity to firearm manufacturers throughout the United States, with limited exceptions such as, you know, product liability and other things. And then we have Section 230 that gives us immunity to social media companies and the like. And it's really amazing when you think about the giants of big pharma or auto manufacturers. They have, you know, we know they have the limited immunities, but it's nothing like those two. And when they've combined, as Josh was just saying, you know, it's really amazing because they're using those immunities together to kill more people over 18 than any product in the United States. I mean, we know 2 years ago that gun violence overtook automobile crashes as the #1 cause of death for people over 18. That's never happened in the United States since cars were invented. I mean, that's how significant the gun violence problem is. And I think it is a totality of the circumstances. It's the manufacturers. It is living in a world where states continually say, you know, let's roll back open carry. Let's go to constitutional carry. You know, that puts burdens on the businesses that you've now got to provide some type of security in them all. You can't have unarmed security guards anymore. The legislature just said in Texas, everybody can have a gun in any mall. So
well, that what you're talking about, these open carry laws, it seems as though the movement is not away from gun safety, but it's towards more guns. What can we do as lawyers? You know, I asked you, Josh, I asked you, Mike, what can we do to stop this movement towards more guns? As Josh has already said, there are more guns in America than there are people in America. How do we do that? What can you tell our listeners?
Well, one thing I would say, and because I know a lot of the lawyers in Josh's Uvalde case, I've seen the video of the officers in that school. And if you think a good guy with a gun theory works, watch that video. Watch that video of all those officers with similarly powered weaponry not go in that building. Not go in. Now, you ask, what can lawyers do about it? I mean, I think we need to get involved in this fight from every aspect with our local communities. And it's got to be a grassroots effort. That's when I do lose hope, because I unfortunately, you see time and time again these tragedies, and it's not moving the needle. But we can't give up, because there's over 40,000 a year souls that we lose in the United States that we have to fight for. So I think these types of cases in all aspects, we have to be involved in.
Josh, I always ask people who are talking to the listeners, what gives you hope about this? What can we be hopeful about?
Well, I think you can be hopeful that that in terms of what the type of cases that I get involved with, which is really on the Mike and I do different sides of a problem, basically, but they're both important. One is to protect us in a world where there's lots of mass shootings. That's like Mike's forte. And mine is more maybe like a prevention to try to figure out what are the root causes and how can we move the needle. So I think the hopeful part, it's not a very bright future because of what you guys have been talking about. The red states only make their laws more looser. So we're going to be dealing with guns in our lifetimes and our grandkids' lifetimes. So, maybe if we can, through holding corporate America responsible, through holding municipalities responsible, law enforcement responsible, for making the rest of society pay even more than we already pay to underwrite the American gun industry, then maybe finally, political pressure and other capitalist pressures will be brought to bear on this industry. I'm with you. I agree with Mike that if a Walmart is going to have to pay a lot of money to a bunch of families who lose loved ones in a Walmart shooting, maybe Walmart will get engaged. Maybe the corporate titans in this country will finally say, you know what, we've had enough.
And that's a
one
great
case
point.
at a time. We can only bring one case at a time, and I would just say, I wouldn't spend 13 seconds in Washington, D.C. on this issue because it's a waste. I hate to be bad. I mean, it's just a fact. I've never in my life, we have not lived through less return on an investment of money and efforts. And if the flesh and blood of 20 children in Newtown is not going to move the needle, and then you have the flesh and blood of 19 children in Uvalde, and they won't even raise the age in Texas from 18 to 21, and the government can't pass a freaking age limitations on AR-15s. It's a dead issue. It's just a numbers game. So I would do anything outside the beltway, so to speak.
Yeah, and I would add to that, the insurance industry. I mean, can you imagine what the gun tax is on insurance premiums in the United States of America?
We're all paying for it.
Absolutely.
Financially, we're all paying for it.
And the insurance companies are paying for it.
It used to be it used to be free money for the insurance companies, but that's good. So that hopefully has changed.
Yeah. You have the FBI.
You never had to pay out.
The federal government has paid in several cases, in the Sutherland Springs shooting case, in Parkland, in the South Carolina church case, hundreds of millions of dollars the FBI has been liable for because of tips in those cases, all because of gun violence. I mean, that's the American taxpayer pays a gun tax. Medicaid, you think tobacco? I mean, tobacco is a pretty good Medicaid tax. How about gun violence? Yeah. So there's a lot of those things that hopefully can move the needle. We probably need to do a better job of showing those numbers to the American public.
I want to end with this. I want to thank both of you for doing the hard work, for, as I often say, for agitating, and agitating, and for having the courage to stand where people need lawyers to stand. This has been a very good 2-episode discussion about the cancer in America of gun violence. And Mike, I want to thank you for coming back again. And Josh, I want to thank you for being here. And again, congratulations on that well-deserved award by Time Magazine. If you like,
Thank you.
If you like what you heard today, subscribe, listen. You can find it on Spotify, iTunes, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcast. I'm Joe Tucker, president of the International Academy of Trial Lawyers. Thank you for listening to The Rule of Law, the Academy Speaks.